Good morning, everybody. It's BDF44 coming at you with another video. So I want to talk about Kevin Durant's interview on WSJ. It was an article that was taken out. They did an interview with him. And make a long story very short, he came out and just blasted Oklahoma, basically saying that, all the cupcake stuff and all that was bad enough. But when he saw footage of somebody shooting at his number 35 Thunder jersey, putting holes through that thing with a real gun, that was when he said, you know what, I'm done with this city, I'm done with these people. Love must have been fake. I'm paraphrasing as always, but he done with him. He wanted to have a connection with him, come back, do something in the community, but he just don't feel comfortable doing that no more because of how that entire situation played out. He also mentioned that he never felt like he fit in with the Golden State Warriors because obviously the other stars that were either drafted there. Iguodala won his first championship there, won the first Finals MVP of his career there, the only Finals MVP of his career there. So everybody felt like they were deeply rooted in the Golden State culture, and he didn't feel that way. He never felt like he was accepted, and he always felt like it was like, KD and the boys, KD and the band, that type of deal. He felt like he wasn't getting the type of, kind of fit. He wasn't fitting in, I guess is what he was trying to say. He was never allowed to fit in because of the perception of the media and all of that good stuff as well in his mind. So basically, I read the article in its entirety, and I think the only thing that I can honestly say that I just was uncomfortable with, and I think a lot of people probably will be, is the fact that he was saying that because of that one incident, he didn't have positive interactions with some of the people that he worked with for all those years in OKC. Like, okay, I can't relate to being famous. I can't relate to having somebody shoot through my jersey. I don't know how that feels. So I only go so far with my opinion. But I think when one person or one group does something, the challenge is to try not to view everybody in the vicinity the same as you view the people who've done those things. And to lump an entire stadium, an entire city of people as individuals who are against you because of the images that you saw, just because of those little images and those instances that were taking place in that moment when everybody was mad at you for leaving their team, for turning their back and going to the rival who had just beat you in a series where you were up 3-1 and then y'all gave up 4 games. Like, that whole scenario, the lack of understanding that KD has for how the fans feel in that regard is a part of his growth process from my perspective. He's gonna have to grow into understanding how not to be extreme and how not to look at things from such an extreme standpoint. And I think when you listen to a person describe their perception, you can kind of see the trauma in their lives. And this is coming from somebody who's dealing with his mental health, as I've mentioned a couple times. I'm trying to discover some things, try to figure some things out so I can go forward. So when I listen to people speak, I kind of put myself in certain situations. I kind of put myself into what they're saying. I kind of listen and try to see if there's a part of me in that. And I think that KD's perception in that regard just is just an extreme type of thing. He's a receptor of all this energy, and because he's focused on that particular energy, he applies it to everything else. One person in that situation wronged me, so everybody over there must think like that. And I think that's a misguided point of view, or that's a point of view that will guide you away. I ain't gonna say misguided because that assumes that someone else is pushing him along, and I think this is all on his own. But I think that's the type of perception or perspective that's gonna send you in the wrong direction. And I think that's what's happened. He's alienated some people. He's pushed people away because of how he perceives the negative energy. And this goes back to the toxicity of media coverage. This goes back to how traumatizing it could possibly be to be world famous, to not have privacy, to be an introverted spirit, and not feel like you have the freedom to be seen and heard as you want to be seen and understood the way you want to be understood. It's a lot that comes with it. And KD just seems like a guy who really, really, really needs to deal with his head, his perception, and open his mind to trusting the possibilities of maybe just because a few people wronged you doesn't mean that everybody's gonna wrong you. You got to be willing to be vulnerable to some degree. And I know he mentioned his paranoia. Somewhere in the article, it mentioned someone had asked him a question sometime in the past about what fuels him and what inspires him to be great. And I think in what was said was something along the line that his paranoia was what fueled him. Everybody's fueled by different things. And I've always thought that KD was fueled by negative energy. Even though he lashes out at it, it tends to be something that he draws energy from. He goes toward it. Or at least that's how the perception is of the report. So if I'm to believe that, then I would say it's a double-edged sword. If you feed off of negative energy and it's what fuels you, you're also going to get eaten by that negative energy as well. Even though it's going to allow you to be successful in some of the areas that you want to be successful, it's also going to make it very difficult for you to sleep at night, make it very difficult for you to have friends in life, make it very difficult for you to look in the mirror and be comfortable with who you see, and all of that good stuff. So I think what we're seeing in KD, and this is still a very young man, I don't think he's no older than 31, 32, he's still trying to figure some things out. I think that aspect of his perception is what is sending him in different directions. And I don't know if I've made a video on this or not, but I said it in regards to Kyrie's situation. Going to Brooklyn was a little strange to me because of KD's injury and how he would come back. But I think going to Brooklyn was a little strange for KD because leaving Golden State obviously is a dynasty that is very much still in its ability to win if he stays there. So even though they would have had a year off to try to lick their wounds, to try to figure out what condition he would come back in, I still think they would be the favorites ultimately to win the championship the following year. Even with the Lakers and the Clippers and the Philly and all these teams around, I don't think anybody beats the KD Golden State Warriors if they stay together. So the idea that winning was not as important as perceiving to feel accepted just speaks to his mental health, in my opinion. Not to say that he's crazy or anything like that, but there's always things in our lives that make it so that we have to go back and recoup and recalibrate what's going on up here. And I think with all that he's been through, I think that's where he's at. Just from looking from the outside in. Again, I don't have any connections to this dude. I don't know this dude, but we read and we look at what we see, and we make our statements off of that as talking heads. So that's what I'm doing here. But obviously, I wish KD will. I ain't got nothing personal against the dude. I just feel like when you make a statement, a blanketed statement about who you can and cannot get along with, if it's not attached to what those individual people have done, then it's probably misguided one way or another. And that's a tough thing to say because we live our lives in such a way where we view people as groups and we view people as cliques, and that type of thing is very prevalent in our lives. But when you're talking about a city of people who support a celebrity and you're that celebrity and one crazy fan shoots some bullets at your jersey, and then all of a sudden you mad at everybody in the arena, you mad at people on the street, you mad at random old ladies online, like that kind of stuff to me is not not healthy. That's not healthy. And so that's what I think. I think, Kevin Durant is an extremely great player. And a lot of times when people are really great, when excellence is something that they exude with ease, sometimes there's a lot of difficulty containing the skull and what's in the skull, rather. You have a brilliant mind, you have an amazing mind, you have amazing accuracy. That means you probably are receptive a little stronger than the average human being. Your perception of the world is a little more vivid. You probably magnify things a little more than most. You see detail in ways that the average human doesn't. So that kind of stuff can make it very difficult to kind of cope. It's hard to deal with a brilliant mind. It's basically what I've gathered from watching people who've been great struggle with things that seem to be stuff that other people who don't have greatness tend to not worry about, tend to not have issues with, rather. So I don't know, man. I hope KD can make it. Also, I want to say this. I think KD left a championship caliber team when he left Oklahoma City initially to go to Golden State. I never made a video about that, so I just like to say that right now. I thought that when they acquired Oladipo, and I believe that was, I don't remember if Serge Ibaka had still been a part of the team where they traded him after KD left. I think they traded him after KD left. I don't remember though, but either way, whether they had Serge or not, I think that team was good enough to beat Golden State, the 73-win Golden State team. I thought KD, Russell Westbrook, Victor Oladipo, and/or Serge Ibaka was a good enough squad to go back against that team they were up 3-1 against and knock them off. Oladipo was enough in my opinion, especially given the fact that KD obviously never goes to Golden State. So Golden State remains deep, but they still only have a three-headed monster as opposed to what they obviously got. And OKC would have been intact as opposed to a team that you have to that you could push away for a year or two while they wait to get Paul George. So to me, he left a championship team. Then he left another one now. And he went to Brooklyn, a Brooklyn team that hasn't been to the finals since Byron Scott was coaching them, bro. Like, since they were in New Jersey. And everything about their history, like ours, as a Laker fan, I can't be a hypocrite, like ours in the recent past, has not been so great. So for you to be the elite player in the league and you're thinking about the places you want to go to start a new chapter of your career, Brooklyn, in my opinion, seems a bit unorthodox. It's not a horrible spot. I can think of a lot worse, don't get me wrong. But it's just a bit unorthodox when you consider him being number one or number two greatest player in the league today. That's just a bit bizarre for me. But I understand the cap space situation and all that. All of that limited his options. He couldn't just go to any team. He's going to take up too much of the cap. They'd have to move things around and create a new team for a guy like that. So I get that. But I just don't know if he's going to be able to win in Brooklyn with what they have and what it looks like they can acquire over the next 2-3 years. I don't. I think he would have been much better to have stayed in Golden State, to not worry about how he's perceived, to not worry about whether or not he fits in, and just go play basketball. You know, go out there and just win like you've been doing, and continue to let the championships and all that pile up. Now you go to Brooklyn, you're hoping Kyrie can be, you know, super duper Kyrie as he's always been, which you expect him to be, and you expect him to keep a good strong team around him, which I think they can do. But and then you expect to come back the same person you were when you left, which is a very, very, very interesting topic. You don't know with the Achilles. So all in all, KD, one of the greatest players of all time, easily first ballot Hall of Famer, easily top 50 when they redo the top 50 greatest players of all time. He's in the top 10 in my opinion. I don't think there's 10 players that ever played this game better than KD, to be completely honest with you. But there have been more than 10 who have accomplished more with less. And I think a lot of it had to do with circumstances and perception. I really do. The decisions that he made to go to team to team to team to team. Even his decision to stay in OKC, the original, his first contract, the way that he stayed there, didn't get wooed by free agency and all that. I thought that was a bit unorthodox. It was almost like the great antithesis, if that's the word, to LeBron James. Felt it was a bit exaggerated in its own subtle way. In other words, LeBron's doing the big decision over here. I'm just going to shoot a text to my manager and just tell them to release the statements that I'm returning to OKC real quietly. I felt like that was, people were applauding him because of it, but I felt like it was almost like a unorthodox jab in the direction of LeBron James. Like, see, I'm great as hell too. I ain't got to do all that. I'm staying home and ain't gonna make a hoopla about it, and I'm just gonna continue. I just felt like that was a telltale sign that he had an interesting personality. That was when I first started realizing, man, that's a little weird. That's a little strange. So now that everything has transpired and how it's all played out, I feel sorry for Kevin Durant in that regard, because the one place that he would otherwise be immortalized as an individual superstar, he feels like he's estranged from all those people because of a few incidences that he was able to experience from them. And the fact that everybody was calling him a cupcake, the perception is that all of this is geared toward me, and it's unwarranted. And I look at it and say it was very much warranted because of the circumstances and because of the fact that they felt so strongly about their team. They love hard and they feel betrayed, so they're going to hate hard. And if, you know, as he said in regards to your perception of Drake, because he mentioned in the article that anyone that questions how strongly Drake supports his team needs to reevaluate themselves. I would apply the same exact thing to how he's perceiving the OKC Thunder fans in regards to himself. Just being honest. They had a right because they're sports fans. And I think the last thing about the situation I'd like to mention is the fact that he said he didn't like the NBA, being in NBA circles sometimes because of the executives and the business aspect of it. He doesn't really like being in that. He felt like, and paraphrasing as always, players allowed the business side of basketball to affect how they view the X's and O's of basketball. And he didn't appreciate that at all. I felt like that was an important thing to say because, again, that's a perception thing, you know, and a lot of times, yeah, you can be in a room with people that are in positions of power and all that. You can feel uncomfortable. You can be in circumstances where you feel like people are selling out and ain't gonna feel too good. But I think just in listening and putting everything together from what has been said, that's another one of those perception things that have probably been magnified by his own head as opposed to it actually being unbearable for the average person in his circumstance, which I don't even know if there's a such thing. But at the end of the day, man, you got to be comfortable in your own skin. You got to be strong in your convictions, and you got to know that you're great when you walk in the room, and know who you are when you leave. Know where the exits are, as I always say. And, you know, I'm not big on, you know, being in spaces with people who are stuck up and all kinds of stuff like that. That's not something I would feel extremely comfortable in. So I guess I can relate to a degree, but at the same time, it's like people are going to be people. And just because you see this basketball player and that basketball player doing that, don't mean you got to blanket an entire league of people and say, I don't like being around none of them because of this. It's just extreme. It's a lot of extremes and extremities, that's not a word that you want to use in that situation, but anything extreme is going to push you in a direction that's further away from where you actually need to go in terms of your limits. That's basically what being extreme does. It pulls you completely away from everything, any possibilities of anything being positive, and that shuts doors. It burns bridges, and it makes it so that people perceive you a certain way. So to change that perception, you got to be a bit more open to the possibilities of things not being so damn horrible. So I'll leave it at that. I've rambled enough. KD, I wish you well. As I always say in every video, I don't mean to offend. I know KD listens and hears everything that is attached to his name. So I'd imagine if he saw this video, he'd probably feel a few ways about me. I'm nobody in an apartment. I'm not putting myself on any pedestal at all. I'm just trying to make my way through doing the things that I love to do, which is talk basketball and talk my perception of things as I see them and as I hear. And I'm always willing to be wrong. I'll come up here right away and say, yo, I felt strongly, but been proven wrong, so it is what it is. I don't have no problem being wrong. I think at the end of the day, I want to see people in a position to feel good about themselves, whether they're in a position of great wealth or a position of just like myself, chilling in an apartment. So that's what it's all about. I hope to make the world a little better just from being present. But yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you all are doing well. And my name is BDF44. Peace.